In today's video, I'm going to teach you 3 ways to light a fashion portrait. You can use soft light, hard light, or colored gels. So let's get started. Welcome back everyone. If you're new here, I help photographers master studio lighting through videos where I break down real-world shoots and the fundamental skills you need in order to be a successful portrait photographer. In this video, we're going to look at 3 ways that you can approach fashion lighting, each with a different purpose and mood. The first 2 full body setups can be done with minimal gear, and the third look will require 3 to 4 lights. And if you stick around to the end, I'll share some post-production tips for finessing your shots to match your vision. Be sure to check out the description for links to all of the gear that I'm using, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and sign up for the bell. We're starting with a classic, soft, painterly lighting setup. This is great for full-body portraits that need to feel refined and elegant. For this look, I lit Kyle from camera right using an Elinchrom 190cm indirect octabox. You could use any large modifier between 5 and 7 feet as long as it gives you soft, even light. Inside a vintage Hollywood-style Fresnel, a Richardson 412, I placed an Elinchrom ONE with 2 full CTO gels. This trick makes it look like the movie light was turned on without the heat that comes from actually powering it up. If I turned it on, Kyle would probably be melting after about 10 minutes. At ISO 100, the octabox metered at f8 and the Fresnel at 2.8. I originally had a V-flat World V-flat on camera left, but it lifted the shadows too much, so I pulled it out. I also feathered the octabox to keep the light off the floor, and I had to increase the power by 2/3 of a stop to maintain my exposure. Later, I brought the V-flat back, but folded it in half to boost the shadows just a touch, but without losing too much contrast. While I started with a green gravity backdrop, I switched to a cool gray painted canvas background for a more monochromatic feel. I had to feather the key light slightly away from the background to make it appear darker in my frame. I even used a 4x4 foot flag near the floor in front of the octabox in order to dim the lower half of my composition. The camera settings were 1/200th of a second at f8 at ISO 100, and I used my Canon RF 70 to 200mm f4 lens at 70mm with a 1/8 Black Pro mist filter in order to make the light glow from the Fresnel. And in case you're wondering, the reason why I don't use the 2.8 version of this lens is because I did a test and I found that there really was no benefit to having that expensive lens if you're going to shoot around f8 or so in the studio all the time. So I made a video about it, which you can check out up here. In post, I also enhanced his abs, darkened his left arm and his pants, adjusted the floor color, and matched the tone of his feet to his overall skin tone. The result? A moody sculpted portrait that showcases his denim outfit, but doing so with style. Now let's pivot to something a lot more dramatic. This is a hard editorial lighting classic, bold and perfect for fashion. It's the kind of setup you'd see in a high-end magazine spread because it emphasizes texture, structure, and attitude. For this look, I used 2 strobes with grid reflectors. The main light was placed on camera right and flagged with a V-flat and a 4x4 floppy. I did so in order to create a dramatic shadow across the background. Then I added a kicker in the back on camera left using a 30-degree grid to separate Kyle from the background. The grid allowed the light to hit him, but not the floor. Both of these lights metered at 1/200th of a second at f8 at ISO 100. When you lower the ambient light in the room, the only thing contributing to your exposure will be the pulse of light coming from your flash. And the time it takes for that pulse to happen is known as the flash duration. The length of that pulse determines how much of your image is frozen in time, and it effectively becomes your shutter speed. I started with both lights in standard mode, which prioritizes color consistency across the power range of the strobes, but that also stretches out the flash duration, which can cause motion blur. So I switched them into action mode, also known as freeze mode or color mode off, depending on the brand. This shortens the flash pulse, sacrificing a little color accuracy in exchange for freezing motion. Here's a quick comparison. In standard mode, the main light had a flash duration of about 1/454th of a second. In action mode, it dropped to 1/3597th of a second, and that made all the difference. I was still shooting at 1/200th of a second, which is my sync speed, but now Kyle's feet mid-jump were tack sharp. To finish the image, I used one of Capture One's Beyond Film styles in order to tint the shadows blue and warm up the skin tone. Now, a lot of people assume you need high-speed sync in order to freeze motion in the studio, but that couldn't be further from the case. High-speed sync is great outdoors when you can't control the light and want to use faster shutter speeds, but indoors, when the flash is your only light source, or practically your only light source, it's the flash duration, not the shutter speed, that freezes the motion. The reason why is if you take a photo without flash, it's going to be basically blank. That means the only thing contributing to your shot is the brief pulse of light from your flash. And the shorter the flash duration, the sharper your image is going to be. To dive deeper into this topic, including the numbers, setup, and before and after shots, check out this full video I made on freezing motion with flash. It breaks it down step by step. Finally, let's turn up the color with some gels. This is where fashion photography shifts from simply showing off clothing to crafting a full-blown visual experience. I started this setup with 3 strobes, each equipped with grid reflectors and fitted with Roscoe Cal Color gels. I used cyan, magenta, and yellow. I metered each one so that the output was f5.6. When combined, their cumulative exposure measured at f8 1/3. Now, the overlap of these colors created some secondary colors, blue, green, and red. But the mix didn't do well on Kyle's skin, and so I switched to red, green, and blue gels. These colors create cyan, magenta, and yellow light where they overlap. To make the most out of each color, I positioned the red and blue strobes on opposite sides of the set, minimizing their blend with each other. Then I added a 4th light behind him to illuminate the crimson, savage, seamless background. The backlight was mounted low on an Apple box and later a 20-inch C-stand. The final result was essentially tetradic color harmony: red, orange, green, and blue. It's a vibrant combination that adds punch without overwhelming the subject. For styling, we started with a dark jacket and transitioned to a yellow polo. This change in wardrobe gave the same lighting setup a completely different tone. The jacket seemed to make the image dark, while the polo introduced a graphic, almost pop art vibe and showed off his muscular arms. If you're trying to set up this yourself, my biggest tip is to meter your lights. Balancing the brightness of each color is what helps you blend them to create a new color where they overlap. Once everything is equalized, you can dial in the look by eye, but just know that when you combine blue and red, you get magenta. When you combine green and blue, you get cyan. And when you combine red and green, you end up with yellow. And that's the way that this look works. If you add a little too much blue or a little too much red, you might not get the color you're expecting. So having the lights equalized and dialed in with a light meter really helps. But you could do trial and error. It just might take a long time. If you want, check out this video I made that goes over color harmony and blending colored light together. And I want to give you one more tip as we leave here today. In order to refine my images almost all of the time in Lightroom or Capture One, I use Capture One most of the time, I will apply a new layer and apply a radial mask. And then I will pull down the midtones on the outside of that circle and I will feather it fully. In Capture One, you have to grab this inner circle and pull it in, but in Lightroom, you can change the feather slider to 100. What this does is it darkens the edges of the shot just a little bit, and it causes the viewer's eye to go inwards towards your subject. This will just refine the lighting that you're already doing on set. It's not a replacement for the lighting. You're just making it a little better and bringing attention to the areas where you want to draw the viewer's attention. So there you have it. 3 complete lighting setups for fashion photography. A soft painterly portrait, a crisp editorial hard light look, and a bold color-driven concept. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and let us know in the comments which of these looks is your favorite. And if you want to take your lighting even further, check out my in-person lighting workshops or my membership site, The Academy with John Gress, which is full of in-depth online education, including longer format tutorials than what you'll find here on YouTube. Remember to like, subscribe, and sign up for the bell. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon.